Hi everyone, thank you for tuning into this conversation with Lawyers Mediation Edition. My name is Hui Li and this is my friend Junius. We have invited Mr. Aloysius Goh to give us a greater insight into the mediation process and the impact on COVID-19 on mediation.
Aloysius is the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Sage Mediation. Sage is a provider of mediation services and international mediation training. Aloysius is an international mediator on the panels of the Singapore International Mediation Center, Japan International Mediation Center in Kyoto, and the Vienna International Arbitration Center.
Okay, so let us just first start off with maybe Aloysius, could you introduce us to mediation? What is the mediation process like?
Okay. Well, for those who have not been for mediation before, first encounter is commonly when you have a dispute, and you have tried negotiating and trying to talk to the person who you are in disagreement with and trying to get the matter resolved. But either the discussions have broken down, whatever you say is not working out, or the person doesn't want to talk to you. In some instances, you are encountering mediation after you have filed in court. And the court is asking you, look, can you try to resolve this amicably? And I think that is the spirit of what mediation is. Mediation is really an attempt to try and get a private and amicable solution to a disagreement that you are having with somebody else. And to help to bridge this communication impasse that you are encountering during the negotiation, you basically ask a third party, somebody who everybody that is in the dispute can trust to be neutral, can trust to be fair, and somebody who has the expertise, in conflict management to listen, to ask the right questions, and to help to bridge that gap, that impasse. And so where the mediator differs in his role from that of a judge or an arbitrator is that one of the key elements of the mediator is we don't expect him to give a clear judgment. When you go to him, you are not trying to argue your case and then try and ask him to say, look, can you tell him that he is wrong, or can you tell her that she is wrong? When you go to a mediator, it's basically trying to look to him to say, I'm trying to explain this. I'm not finding the right words and the right way, and I'm not hearing the other person in the right way. I keep thinking that she's trying to say this to me, but she says no, and we can't close this gap. And the mediator, therefore, is really just there to listen and say, look, maybe there's this other ways of interpreting matters, and that is where our training comes in. Our training comes into being able to look into what is expressed and discover some of the deeper concerns and the different ways that addressing these deeper concerns can possibly help the parties to suddenly restore some of the trust and look again to building a better relationship. And this is probably the biggest difference and why I have enjoyed mediation, because I was trained in law as well, and very often, especially in our legal system, it's a common law system, and then we are trained to say the way to resolve dispute is to find out who is right and wrong. And so when you try and resolve a dispute, if you are a disputant, you always try to say you are right and the other person must be wrong. And I think most of us who have practiced and who have tried to help people resolve disputes, after a while come to realize that, oftentimes when there's a disagreement, it is not so clean that there is a full right and wrong. Everybody contributed a little bit to the problem, and everybody can contribute a little bit to the solution. So mediation is different, therefore, from litigation and arbitration, in that it's not adversarial. It is really there when we want to I mean, the cliche word is win-win, is instead of win-loss. I think, and the other cliche word is compromise. Mediation is not about compromise alone. Mediation is just about trying to find that way forward for everybody. And yeah, so this is the process that I have found to be really attractive to be it to businesses or to families or to neighbors who have the wisdom to recognize that even after we have resolved this dispute, we still need each other. We're still in a small village, we're still in a small community. It is wiser to try and find an amicable way forward because we need to live with each other. And we have a part to play to ensure that harmony in community. So this is mediation in a nutshell. A lot of listening, a lot of creative problem solving, a lot of looking at deeper concerns and finding novel ways of resolving them when the legally prescribed solutions will not work.
Yeah, so Aloysius, you've already mentioned some of the advantages of mediation, such as building a relationship with others. But could you share with us more on what are the other differences between litigation, mediation, and arbitration that a lay person should look out for?
Good. So I think what is important for a lay person to recognize is that you don't need a lawyer to start a mediation, right? When you go to court, when you go for arbitration, very often it's about legal arguments. You engage a lawyer, and the lawyer takes the lead in making your case on your behalf. You need to call for witnesses. You're trying to prove that you are right. You are gathering evidence. You're gathering emails and documents, and there is a very strict process. If you don't follow that process, even if you think you are right, simply because of a wrong process, you might find yourself losing. There's a reason for that process. I believe that this is part of justice, but it can be frustrating because there is a time delay to all of this, and there's a high cost. Of course, you have to engage lawyers, you have to get expert witnesses, spend a lot of time gathering those witnesses, and the outcome in the end is something which the judge or the arbitrator tells you that he thinks is right or wrong. The outcome is something which is based on similar cases before you or what the law says. Mediation, on the other hand, I have actually just yesterday been called at lunchtime to help to resolve a case later in the afternoon. It can happen extremely quickly. Yesterday's case was a family dispute, and I told them, look, let me try first, right? Before you escalate this, before you start engaging lawyers for them to advise you on your rights, why don't we try and talk? You guys are families in the end. And so I quickly got down to chatting with everybody who was involved. No need to call for witnesses. It was then just about what he said and what she said, and what were the provocative words, and that the provocative words were misinterpreted at that moment. It is about tempering the emotions of the parties, helping them to see each other's perspectives, and the matter was resolved in about 2 hours, rather than several days. So compared to the months and weeks of preparation and the duration of the hearing, very, very fast. And the solution came from the parties. I didn't tell them how to live as brothers and sisters. They were the ones who shared with me that, look, this was how we used to be before we had this quarrel. We just want to go back to that. And I said, yes. You choose how you want to continue living in the future. This is not something which the law can tell you is correct or wrong. This is very personal to you. This is not something which I can just say, other families live like this, you should live like this too. And so this is the beauty of mediation. But of course, mediation is not just meant for family disputes. Unfortunately, because of COVID, there has been a rise in disputes, and a lot of them are within the family, right? I mean, I've in the last 2 weeks alone, I've seen a lot of there's been a lot of money lending and money borrowing within the family, and then people arrive in times of need, and then the dispute occur, and it's unfortunate, but there is always a way to get the matter resolved. And similarly, even for commercial work, also seeing a lot more disputes. Mediation is very good because, especially because of COVID, many people are just going through a hard time because of the circuit breaker and sudden disruptions. But once the measures lift and they can go back to doing business, they will make this money back and can pay it back in due course. It's just that at a stipulated contractual deadline they couldn't. So mediation is really this process that facilitates that flexible negotiation and outcome for the parties.
Thanks for sharing, Aloysius. I think next we would like to help the audience also to have a clearer expectation of the mediation process. So what are some factors or things that one should consider before deciding to go for mediation? And in the same vein also, what is something that one should not expect at mediation?
I think some of the toughest, I mean, when people engage or come and make an inquiry to me, some of the questions they ask is, how do I know that you are the right mediator? How do I know that this case can be mediated? They don't even really want to talk to me. Why will they talk to you, right? And so there are all these factors at play, and sometimes it's also the sheer nature of the dispute. So several things that on the dispute itself, the first question is timing. As mediators, sometimes we say, is the matter right for a third party to intervene? Is it the right time? When is the right time? I think the right time is when you are still talking, but the tension has risen, and you kind of know that, if the next next 1 or 2 rounds of negotiations don't go well, things will really go downhill for the relationship between you and the other party, and for whatever problem the two of you are trying to resolve. I think that is the right time to quickly think about getting a mediator. Unfortunately, a lot of people like to engage a mediator after the negotiations have completely broken down. But typically what happens is that when the negotiations have completely broken down, instead of looking at the problem as, I can't earn enough money to pay you, that is the problem. And the solution is we work together to find a way to help you to make that money to pay me. Suddenly the problem becomes Aloysius is the unreasonable delinquent one. They personalize the problem after when the negotiations have completely broken down. So timing is important. The other matter of who to mediate it, try to get a neutral. Try not to get, again, going back to family disputes, they often try to get a family member to try to mediate the family dispute, and it's very, very tough. You put the family member in a difficult spot. Or you try to get someone from the same industry. Yes, that person from the same industry for a commercial dispute might know the nature, the technicalities of the dispute better, but make sure he is not already in any kind of contractual or commercial relationship, because then there's a conflict of interest. Again, it can make at least one party feel very uncomfortable. So find somebody who is neutral, but who then also has the right skill. So there are many mediators out there. Some people, there are a lot of retired judges, and sometimes you want someone with that legal expertise. There are family counselors who can help perhaps with family disputes, and there are engineers who can help with construction disputes. You don't always need it, such technical backgrounds, but things to think about. In preparing for a mediation. And what you should expect is, I always tell parties, try to put aside the full day. The mediator might tell you just half a day, but prepare for a full day, and importantly, think a little bit about what are you here to achieve? What do you really want most? Because that is a question that the mediator will ask. Many parties actually struggle to understand that, and that has been the joy of mediation for me. That as I talk to them, as I ask them questions, you see that light bulb go on for them, because they suddenly, I didn't realize actually until I spoke to you and you asked me the question that actually what I was after is this, and actually what he was after is this, and they are actually not competing. But it is something which to make the mediation fruitful, worth thinking about, and of course, come with the right attitude. Don't come with the attitude of I want to just come and scold him or her. I want to come and show to the world by showing to the mediator how unreasonable he or she is. Because oftentimes when you come with that attitude, like the likelihood is you are only going to show yourself to be unreasonable. Yeah.
So, Aloysius, it seems that during this pandemic, you mentioned that a lot of parties, including families, have been seeking mediation. So, we would like to hear more from you about some of the observations you have made with regards to mediation during this time of COVID. Our question is, has the mediation process changed during COVID? And if yes, how so?
Well, one of the most stark changes is how this interview is being carried on. There's a lot of mediations that are now happening over Zoom. It does affect the dynamic of communication. Not as bad as what we initially feared. You know, when we first started doing this, there were a lot of worries that then I can't tell the person's body language. I can't tell whether the person is sincere. I mean, it's good to meet the person face to face, right? In person. I don't disagree. I think that if we can meet in person, it is definitely ideal. But I think people have become more comfortable and more sensitive to using Zoom. And so a lot of mediations are happening over Zoom. It means that we need to be more careful in our setup and more sensitive as well, because sometimes we assume that everyone has a stable Zoom setup, and when it breaks off and we get disconnected midway through, it can be frustrating, and then we view it as insincerity. So that's one, right? That technology has played a big part in mediation more than ever before. Mediation has been digitalized at a way faster pace. The second part of course that is different is actually I have found that generally, even though conflicts have increased, and I especially I say that during the current moment when we first had to be socially distanced, when we first had the circuit breaker, I didn't see so many conflicts, but in the last month, a lot more cases have surfaced, and as I talk to each of them, I realized that part of it is because they actually have not seen each other very much. Even if they have seen each other, it was over Zoom. And so there is an accumulated fatigue and an accumulated deterioration of the communication. And that is becoming a major cause. There is a deterioration in the social fabric that is leading to a growth of conflicts. I think, and again, this is manifested in the kind of commercial disputes that I'm seeing. The people are more prepared to quickly engage lawyers. I think there is, and I think part of this is possibly because everyone is worried that the economy is slowing down, the other side might be going bankrupt or something. I want to lodge my rights first. I don't know what it is, but or maybe the lawyers have a better Wi-Fi system. I don't know, but people are very quick to talk to lawyers to try and file their claims, right? So my friends in dispute are saying that they're overworked. I do think that people need to make greater effort to be more understanding, and I thankfully dare say that actually for the mediations that I've done, even over Zoom, success rate has been very high. I would like to claim sole credit for it, but I think I'm slightly more sensible than that. I think COVID has also made us a bit more alive to the value of life and the value of community and the need for us to work together. And so when you can broker something that is reasonable with the other side, people are actually very, very ready to accept a transformed deal. And so I think that is, again, quite uniquely, I mean, it's just that COVID has given everybody a good excuse to be more forgiving. And I think people are using that excuse, thankfully. Yeah.
Yeah, Aloysius, I heard that you mentioned that a lot of conflicts, you've seen more conflicts around this period of time. And partially it's because people have not been seeing each other, or if they have, it's merely over Zoom. So we were just kind of wondering, how would mediation be a suitable dispute mechanism during this pandemic? Because in a sense, mediation is also held over Zoom, and it's unlikely that people will be able to have in-person mediations soon. Yeah.
So actually, mediations are happening in person occasionally. At least in Singapore, we just need to make sure that there is the appropriate compliance with the social distancing requirements. We still use face masks and all of that, right? But it's the same question even before Zoom. Before COVID, why is it that A and B have been talking to each other, they've been meeting in person and negotiating, and they couldn't get matters resolved? What is the difference that the physical presence of a mediator can change? And it does change things, right? So the two of you might have been negotiating over Zoom endlessly, but you can't bridge it. But somehow it is having that third person to really listen to what each of you are saying and to give his views. That, Hui Li, thank you for saying this. I just want to make sure I've heard you correctly, and this is what you've been trying to explain to all of us. And for juniors to hear that what you are saying coming from a mediator, it makes a difference. It makes a difference, be it that he's hearing it from me, where I'm coming in over Zoom, or he's hearing it from me where I'm meeting him in person. So really, the platform is just a platform. It is all about the mediator playing his part. And when you engage somebody who is trained, who is qualified, and who has the experience, it again, talk to my many now friends, I call them my friends, who I've helped to resolve, and truly they update me. Sometimes I call to check in with them on how things have unfolded after the mediation. Oftentimes they are the ones that take their own initiative to call me and tell me, look, we're very grateful because you not only helped me to understand the other side, you helped me to understand myself. And this was all over Zoom. This is part of the joy of mediation.
Sorry.
Yeah, juniors, you're on mute.
Sorry, yeah. Aloysius, you've mentioned that there are many changes to the mediation process due to the digital revolution of mediation. Are these changes likely to continue even after this pandemic blows over?
So will you all be still expected to be having mediations over Zoom even after people are able to meet face to face?
so that there is all this conversation of what the new normal is going to be, right? And I don't think anybody knows for sure yet. The new normal is evolving all the time. Right now, I mean, we have moved from all in person to all virtual, and because I actually do a lot of international work, we now have a mix of we call it hybrid mediations. Some those of us who can meet in person, and then other people call in. So I don't think what the new normal is known yet. But I do think that virtual mediations are here to stay. It is not just for health reasons. It is just that people are becoming more comfortable. I mean, again, this interview, right? And people are. It saves a lot of cost. It is extremely convenient. So yeah, I mean, I do think that virtual mediations will be a parallel process. The part that I think socially we need to continue to watch, and I'm very concerned about this, just as a citizen, as a human, is the inequality, because virtual mediations assume that everybody has access to computers, sound systems, cameras, a private environment, and I do enough work to realize that these are huge privileges. A lot of people don't have the privilege of having a private environment to work out of. They don't have the privilege of stable technology. And so this is probably also why we cannot do away with in-person work, because a very big part, I think our Chief Justice has said, a very big part of mediation is social justice. It's about access to justice. So that we need to balance this convenience that virtual mediation provides with ensuring that people who don't have the privilege of technology still get access to justice.
Yeah, Aloysius, we also understand that you are on the panel for many international mediation centers around the world, like you've mentioned. And these centers have come up with various measures, such as partnering with different international centers to provide services for businesses to settle their disputes through mediation. Do you have any thoughts on these new measures?
Honestly, I think for many of the centers that I'm interacting closely with, the actual mediation process, the only change is to move it from in-person to technology. You know, in terms of rule changes, the other big thing that thankfully a lot of mediation centers and mediators are rolling out is to reduce their costs, so that more people whose livelihoods have been affected can get access to mediation services. And we see this in Japan. We definitely see this in Singapore. Vienna has reduced their costs for a COVID protocol. Spain is looking at tying up with the courts. Private mediators are looking to tie up with the courts. Turkey is the same, to tie up with the courts and roll out cheaper mediations. I mean, and part of this cheaper mediations is basically us transferring the cost savings to the users, because we don't need to rent a facility anymore, right? Zoom is a lot cheaper than renting 3 rooms for a mediation, and yeah, so it's this. It is not just a rule change. Definitely there are this changes in the rules, but more importantly, I think it's a mindset change. And one of my mentors like to tell me that mediation is not a process, and it's not a set of rules. It is a mindset. It is that mindset of, you know, when I have a conflict, I will always, as a first resort, try to resolve things amicably. And I think a lot of the centers are now more actively trying to foster that mindset. A lot of centers are out there trying to shape that narrative. And it's not just the centers. Many of these centers are government-backed. So a lot of government organizations, government agencies have been in different countries, have been pushing it there and saying, look, if your livelihood, if your company has been affected, if your family has been affected, please don't sue the other side first. Please try and find an amicable solution. We have this mediation infrastructure to assist you. And that is something which is happening all over the world.
Okay, so thank you, Aloysius, for your insight into the mediation process and the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on mediation. However, before we end off, do you have any additional comment to add?
Or anything that you would like to share with the audience?
Well, actually, the only thing I want to repeat, I was talking to a teenager who I had the privilege of training in mediation, and we were asking quite a similar question. What is it that you think people need to hear right now? And I was very taken by her answer, because her answer was simply, let's let everybody know, don't be afraid. I think this is a time where we need a lot of courage. We need that courage to converse. We need that courage to look beyond a lot of the negativity that is around us, be it illness or loss of jobs, loss of contracts, people not paying, having no means to pay. Don't let these things get you down, and don't let these things make you give up hope. Everyone has their own stress right now, including me. We all have a stress, but nobody is alone, and there are a lot of people wanting to help. There's a lot of there's also a lot of lawyers, a lot of my friends who are ready to assist. So don't take everything on themselves. I'm glad for schemes like COVID, which is trying to make all this assistance that other members in the community are offering readily available to the community members who need it. So good job to COVID, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Aloysius. So we've come to the end of today's episode on Conversation with Lawyers, Mediation Edition. And do remember to like the video if you found it helpful. So thank you and goodbye.
Bye-bye.